Hello there. So yesterday, X-Men 97 season 2 finished. So this will be my review of the finale, and there'll be some spoilers as well. As ever with these reviews, and that the first part will be just my general non-spoiler thoughts and opinion on the episode and the season as a whole, and then we'll go into spoilers. So if you haven't had the chance to watch it yet, there'll be plenty of warning before we go into spoilers. So overall, again, really strong finale. I think the show is massively entertaining. It's so easy to watch. Now, a lot of people seem to think that the fast paced, almost crash pace of the show is almost a detriment in a way. I see where they're coming from because sometimes there's so much going on, a lot of stuff doesn't get time to breathe in that sense. It's always like wham, bam, wallop, here's this, here's that, here's that. And I get where you're coming from in that sense with that, but I'm massively entertained by this. And I will say this: do you really want animated superhero shows going longer than 30 minutes or whatever? I mean, and I know there'll be a lot of people who are like, yeah, well, yes, I do. I want my long shows. And to be fair, when it comes to streaming shows, I actually, whether they be live action or animated, 9 times out of 10, I prefer them to be like 30 minutes, 40, 45 minutes max, to be fair. So in that sense, for me personally, I do actually quite like almost this style of it. It makes it almost very easy to digest, so entertaining. It's just really something good to watch and things. That's not to say that it's not got its flaws. Like, to be fair, sometimes the dialogue is very on the nose, which, it's a reboot of an anime or a continuation of an animated show from the 90s. You're gonna get that. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like, and, and sometimes there's so many characters, a lot of characters can get short shrift in that sense, and you just physically can't, or you logistically can't give them all great storylines. And I think a lot of them have had really strong storylines over this, like particularly Rogue, Gambit. It's all worked. That's been one of the strong points of this as well. Charles Xavier's had a lot of strong stuff here. And, in that sense, it does work. And Nightcrawler as well. He's been great. And but for me, I really this is such an entertaining, thoroughly enjoyable show. You know what? And their season 3 and 4 are going to be have already been confirmed. There's a mid-credit scene which sets up season 3 perfectly, and it's a real doozer, and it really works well. We'll go into that in the spoiler discussion about this. But for me, I enjoyed this show. The animation's fantastic. I would say I slightly preferred season 1 to season 2, but as far as like I was very high on season 1, and I'm still high on this as well. But it's not like one of those things when it was like a disappointment or anything like that. Even though I slightly preferred season 1, this is like, no, this is still good. I'm still really on board. Still excited to see what happens next. Still excited to see what they do in the future. It's not like say last year. I mentioned this quite a lot, but I loved Peacemaker season 1 from a few years ago, and Peacemaker season 2 was fine. You know, had its strengths, had its weaknesses, but overall it was not a patch in the first season. Even though I slightly prepared the first season of X-Men 97 to this one, I still like this highly. And the fact that I can even go back and forth on certain things about certain things I might have liked better, certain things or whatever. But overall, this was actually I'm very happy with the follow up to this as well. It wasn't a disappointment, and and not like I hated Peacemaker season 2 or anything like that. There was elements that I liked. I did kind of hate the finale of that, and I was kind of like, all right, okay. But there was more good than bad, to be fair, with that. But this overall, this was excellent. I really enjoy X-Men 97 season 2. Big thumbs up for it. So we'll be going into some spoilers now. I'm not going to go blow for blow everything that happens in the finale or anything like that, but there'll be some spoilers here. So if you've not had the chance to watch it yet, here's when we go into spoilers. So, obviously the big thing coming from last week's episode, I mentioned this, Rogue and Gambit have been actually probably in many ways the standouts of this season. Of course, Apocalypse is in Gambit's mind and stuff like that. He's made him one of the four horsemen and all that, and Rogue's trying to save him. So I think there was a lot of really great stuff with Rogue here as well. goes and bargains with the Celestial because, do you remember Eternals? Well, well, or did you even see Eternals? But yeah, I seen Eternals. I quite liked it. One of the weaker MCU films, but it's not as bad as people say it is. I quite liked it. So whatever. But whatever happened to Harry Styles in that from the mid-credit scene? Anyway, whatever. I digress. But yeah, so she wants to like basically be a sacrifice to save Gambit things, and then when she comes out and then and tells they're like, and then Nightcrawler's like, oh, I'll see you on the other side. And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But Nightcrawler kind of figures out, she doesn't explicitly say it, but Nightcrawler figures it out, which I think this was really well done. Action wise, very good as well. You had like the dogfight with Jubilee and stuff like that. Yeah, and the planes and the ships and things. You had some really fun action scenes. You had like Wolverine and Psylocke, I think her name is. Whatever. Well, I can't remember all the fucking names, but you get the drift. You know what I'm talking about if you've made it this far. So, it is what it is. But yeah, there was some really good stuff here. There was some very entertaining scenes with this. You've got as well, once we come like to the finale, of course, you've got the whole thing with Nathan Summers is basically like hell bent on killing Gambit just to get to Apocalypse, and he's just other people are like, oh no, don't do it. And when he shoots him, he basically like point blank shoots him in the head. So this is, as much as this is an animated series, it's not really meant for kids in that sense. I think it comes up with a 14 plus or something like that on the Disney Plus thing when the show starts as well. So and we'll get to this when we get to the mid-credit scene as well. So this is incredibly violent, is for sure. I've got all the apocalypse coming out of him and all that, but we then find out Rogue then comes in, saves Gambit, and then she's like, "Oh, why haven't I been sacrificed yet?" And everything. But it turns out, Nightcrawler knew about it, and he went in and sacrificed himself. So of course, Nightcrawler's like Rogue's sister and stuff. It all gets complicated. It's like fucking EastEnders with mutants. To be fair, a lot of the people in EastEnders probably are mutants, but whatever, I digress. But, you know, that was really well done, everyone. So that was effective. And we are getting to the point, though, and I mentioned this earlier in the season where, like, the Magneto death, when it's like sometimes you can kill characters off too much and then bring them back, and it's just kind of like, I get it. You're sitting there saying, "Hey, look, it's an animated series. Do you really want emotional depth?" But after a while, it's kind of like, yeah, they're gonna come back, though, aren't they? So it's kind of like if you think, "Oh, wow, that was really well done," and yet, oh, wait a minute, they're just gonna come back anyway. So, Magneto will end up coming back the next season. Gambit's already back. And one of the best moments of the first season was the Gambit death scene when he did the name's Gambit. Remember it, Mon Ami. Right before it, it's all been kind of undone a little bit because he's back alive with Rogue, which is nice and all that. But you can. This isn't a show to get massively emotionally invested with. It's a show to be massively entertained by, which I am. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say, oh no, isn't it a shame that something happened to this character? I was like, nah, they'll probably be back next year, whatever. But I would say that. So and then we come to the mid-credit scene. What was the Valerie Cooper? I think her name is, and and the bigot guy that's anti-mutants, Gade Carrison or whatever he's called, becomes president after Senator Kelly concedes, and then she ends up getting shot by Mystique. And like I said again, very violent again. You've got like two point blank shots being taken here. So, and on the one hand, she's probably dead, but then again, she probably isn't because they'll probably find a way to bring her back and all whatever. But so Mystique's been brought in. And eagle eye people have noticed on the files that she's looking at. There's little references to Rebecca Romaine, who's of course coming back for Doomsday. We see her in the trailer for that, and Jennifer Lawrence as well. So nice touch there. Overall, very good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I do have my nitpicks. I do think the more I think about it, the more I prefer the first season. However, massively entertained by this. it's a thumbs up show. Very excited that they're going to keep doing these because I'd be very excited to keep watching them. And I'm like, to be fair, I want to watch them as soon as they come out and avoid spoilers for that. So that shows I'm still very much on board with it. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and goodbye.